Hello. Today I would like to bring you a fairly interesting video about Spark. I made this build not because I believe it is the best current build for Spark, but it's because I like to hedge my bets. And if Blood Mage Spark is anything like the 0.1 mana stacking version of Spark, there are going to be many nerfs in the very near future for next patch. So even though Blood Mage, again, probably does like 10x the damage of what I will show you, you don't need 10x damage. Like the clear is pretty much the same if you have 150k DPS tooltip or 2.5 million. Yes, boss fights will be a little bit longer, but I believe what I will show you is a pretty decent build, and especially next patch. So I'll be showing you a mana stack version of Spark, but it will not be through Stormweaver as was previously played, because Stormweaver got shot in the face by some nerfs in the 0.1 patch and the 0.2 patch, but then GGG tapped her off and with another nerf to Arcane Surge. So here are the patch notes for the 0.3 patch. Arcane Surge got nerfed very heavily to go to 15% increased cast speed, and it was 10% more. And the reason this is significant for Stormweaver is because this node also got changed, in that when you stacked mana, you got Arcane Surge buff from Stormweaver, and that is not really the case anymore. So previously, you could get 200% easily, very easily, 200% Arcane Surge, and so that gave you 20% more cast speed and 40% more mana regen. Now that's basically dead, so it is a 30%, if not more, nerf to the build. But Arcane Surge is still pretty good, as I'll show you. You still want to proc it, as it still gives 20% more mana regen. The 15% increased cast speed is whatever, but you can still multiply this effect through the tree, and also in League you can get a jewel socket. So here you can get increase effect of Arcane Surge, so this is multiplying the 20% mana regen, which is the most important part. But since I'm not running Stormweaver, what Ascendancy am I playing? And interestingly, I am playing this as a Pathfinder for multiple reasons. So as I alluded to a few minutes ago, damage in this game is not really relevant, at least when it comes to mapping, because the game is super easy if you have really min-maxed gear. So I don't need an Ascendancy that gives me damage. I'm just basically looking for quality of life. And Pathfinder is very good at quality of life. So if you've mapped for any amount of time, you know that Temp Chains and Shield Ground is terrible. So as a Pathfinder, you are not slowed from these effects, which is great. Additionally, when you cast Spark, it slows you down by quite a bit, but not with this, so you get slowed down by 50% less. And on top of that, since the starting area is obviously in the Ranger starting area, you get a lot of movement speed here, less slow here, movement speed here. So again, mobility, if you're one-shotting mobs, mobility is the next mode of investment that you want to go into. On top of that, since we are full stacking mana and our HP is 1 and our energy shield is 0, we get stunned and frozen a lot. So we are immune to freeze here, and we are immune to stun with our charm. So that's nice. And then just to cap it off, we get 6 passive points, which is always a warm welcome. Outside of that, I'm basically just pathing around. So here, obviously, most builds are doing this, but my weapon swap is shock effect and shock effect, so I get 50% shocks. I'm also picking up this node, which is a big reason why I'm going Pathfinder. So this has really good synergies, because I'm stacking intellect so that I get more mana, but I'm also stacking intellect so I get more evasion rating. And so as you can see, I have roughly 50% evasion and 50% block, so only 1 in 4 attacks or hits will hit me. So just for very few amount of investment. So basically just this is movement speed, but it also gives me evasion. some block nodes here, and then a legacy shield. Those investments alone is making me 4 times as tanky. And again, since I don't need any more damage, being 4 times more tanky is a nice change of pace. Outside of that, I'm just getting damage here, reduced mana cost here, mana here, cast speed, mana obviously, and the biggest thing that most people don't know exists in the game because no one has really played this is GGG implemented a new thing called Archons, and there's different versions of Archons. Obviously, since I'm playing Spark, I get a Lightning Archon, but Lightning Archon gives me more damage, more shock. More shock isn't really relevant, but 25% more damage is pretty nice. But also, on top of that, this node, whenever I'm in Archon, I get movement speed. So, again, movement speed is king, so I would guess the uptime on Archon is like 70%, so I am moving like 13% faster, because even though this is 10%, I do have a effect of Archon over here and over here. So what that kind of looks like is if you cast your abilities and you spend 100% mana, which is quite often, then you get a like 17-second Archon buff with my investment, and I kind of look like this. So looks pretty badass, and again, I move faster by a decent amount, and then I do more damage. So that's pretty cool. As for the gear, so since I'm marginally investing into evasion, some of my pieces do have evasion on them. So for my chest, I have some evasion, my gloves have some evasion, and then my shield has some evasion. And those are the only pieces that give me evasion. And I felt like this was enough to get to roughly 50% evasion. Any more than this, there's like diminishing returns on the amount of percent evasion that you gain from additional evasion rating. I think roughly 50 is a good amount. I mean, I could drop like all this evasion and maybe get like, I don't know, 400 or 400 more mana, but again, that's only like 7% more tanky versus being like twice as tanky to hits. So I think it's well worth the investment, especially again because of the node on the tree that converts or makes my evasion higher due to my intellect. So this is drastically increasing the amount of evasion that I have from my chest and from my shield. This chest also gives spirit, so I am running blink because I'm really used to PoE 1 movement, and I basically want to move around with blink so that I can jump between gaps for a lot of maps. And on top of that, I am running Archmage. So unfortunately, it is currently impossible due to the Arcane Surge nerfs to sustain your mana in single target boss fights strictly based off of mana regen. So as you can see, my mana regen is 800, and then when I drop down my Orb of Storms and I get Arcane Surge and move around, I can get like 1100 mana regen. But in casting my Sparks, I spend like 2500. And if you are running Archmage along with Eldritch Battery along with Mind Over Matter, I'm pretty sure it's like legit impossible for you to sustain your mana on single target. But that's not really an issue for me, especially in standard, because again, Spark is a mapping build, so I'm not really looking to do a ton of bossing on this. The only time I'm bossing is if I'm doing like obviously a boss in a map, and typically bosses in maps are like in an arena, so Spark is pretty good at killing these bosses, but again, outside of bossing, I have basically infinite mana due to mana on kill from 3 jewels that I'm running. I am running 3 jewels that have 2% mana on kill, so I'm basically invulnerable during mapping because 6% of my mana for every single mob that I kill, and I'm killing like 10 mobs a second. It's always capped, but again, during bosses, currently, at least in the game, due to the Arcane Surge nerf, again, it is impossible to sustain your mana on single target. So it will drop, but I'm fine with that because I just use my Legacy Melding Flask and I get instant mana anyway. Outside of that, what to talk about? I'll just show you the rest of my gear, I guess. So, my gear is pretty good. It's not necessarily perfect. I could get another +1 gem on this, but I don't know, it's decent. That's what I have. For gloves, I get a bunch of cast speed. Again, since I'm in standard, you can put a socket in here that gives 80% arcane surge buff, which would be really, really, really beneficial. That would give me 16% more mana regen, along with some cast speed. I am, again, in standard, so I don't have that, so I'm just triple cast speed. The biggest thing is this ring. Since I have Legacy Ingenuity, having a ring that is really good is really beneficial. Again, because it's multiplied by Calandra, and due to Ingenuity. So this is giving me a ton of mana. As you can see, my mana is 5,000. Now it is less than 5,000. So this is giving me like 40% mana, along with damage, along with rarity, along with cast speed. And since there are very, very high diminishing returns on rarity, I'm perfectly fine with running 146. Because in further research that people have come up with over the past few weeks, it's very, 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 very strong diminishing returns after 150. So I'm very close to that 150. So I don't need a double roll of rarity. Like my suffixes, these suffixes are like insane. So that's what I run. For my helm, I'm also getting rarity and other stats that I need. I am socketing mana cost reduction here, because even though I can't sustain it on bosses, it just feels better to have some amount of mana cost reduction. So I'm putting it in my helmet. And my other pieces, obviously, just cast speed, plus levels, mana. Again, resistances, ES, which is converted into mana. And then shield. I could run an ES shield, and an ES shield would make me do like 50% more damage. But again, I would lose like probably 17%, 20% evasion, and then 50% block. So I would lose like 150. I would be like 150% less tanky from hits. So is that worth another 50% damage when I don't really need the damage? No. So that's why I run this shield. As for my links, so these are the current links that I run. Ricochet is really, really good. It makes my sparks pierce every target, so that's nice. Again, mana cost reduction because I need it. Consider casting. It slows down my cast speed, so I can spend less mana, which is a good thing, but also gives me damage. This one is more or less semi-required, in my opinion, because as you can see, my proj speed is 181. When I take it off, it's 53. So as you can see, like, look how slow these sparks are versus when I socket this in. Again, if you kill the targets before they look at you, that makes your build more tanky. So, in my opinion, this is basically required. And then I have mobility. It's a marginal increase, even though I have a 50% less movement speed penalty because I'm a Pathfinder. Another 25% is actually pretty good. And then I also have allocated 2 other nodes on the tree that make me run faster. So, as you can see, this is my current movement speed when I'm casting stuff. I'm very, very, very close to not being slowed down when I use Spark. As for Archmage, it's a level 21, boosted to a level 22, boosted to a level 25 with the new Lineage Gem. Again, I'm running Blink because I like to jump over gaps while I'm mapping. For Orb of Storms, this is on my weapon swap. This is, when I put this down, I get a 50% shock on targets, which is nice, which is obviously 30% more damage because the base shock is 30%, and then it gets buffed to 50%. So for bossing, single target, you're doing 30% more damage just for Orb of Storms. And on top of that, I have Arcane Surge linked to this. So while I'm mapping and I'm running around running Spark, I will occasionally drop an Orb of Storms like every 5 or 6 seconds. And as long as I drop 3 or 4 Orb of Storms in a span of 23 seconds, I will just get the Arcane Surge buff, which increases my cast speed, which also increases my proj speed, and obviously gives me more damage and more mana regen. So that's nice. And then I have Enfeeble, just because I can curse bosses. I don't curse anything outside of that. So that's my setup. So again, this isn't the strongest Spark build in the game. Obviously that goes to Blood Mage, but I thought it was a fairly interesting build, and depending on what happens to Archon and what happens to life stacking and or mana stacking, this could be a pretty strong build in the future. Not saying that it's currently not, but I will show you an example of the build. So even though I don't have millions of DPS, as you can see, things die around me very fast. I'll open up a breach, and you can see, for some reason, I'm lagging really, really hard. But as you can see, I'm just randomly dropping down some Orb of Storms, so I do have the Arcane Surge buff. I can kill some mobs. As you can see, my mana is constantly up, as long as the map has a decent amount of density. And then when my Arcane Surge buff almost ran out, just drop a few more Orb of Storms, and you will keep up the buff. So that's what it looks like. Again, I only have 141 K tooltip DPS. Of course, I don't have 2 million like Blood Mage, but as you can see, things are dying. You don't really need more DPS. So that's my video. Hope you enjoy. Peace.